beta's over, does anybody actually have like any difference opinion?
I can honestly say that after playing those last 2 matches, I have gotten better at understanding how to snipe.
Yeah.
Enough to convince you to buy the game, though?
I'm still very much on the fence. Realistically, I'm actually now looking more forward to the Call of Duty open beta to give that one more of a try, because I get the feeling that one may be more up my alley.
It just seems more like a team deathmatch sort of scenario, isn't it?
COD's always been that little bit more fast-paced, but it's typically more... looking at it historically, it's more straight team deathmatchy than what Battlefield's been.
Be like COD, Halo, that's sort of what I've had a history of playing, so... Battlefield was interesting. It's my first real Battlefield, and I sort of got into medic and was reviving everyone I could and doing suicide revives. It was good.
Yeah, I'm enjoying this a lot, but it's been 5 years since I played a Battlefield game, and I don't know if you guys know this, but in terms of first-person shooters, I started on Battlefield, so the series is always going to have a special place for me, sort of thing. As much as I really got into it with Call of Duty, I started with Battlefield, so...
I mean, that's basically Halo 3 for me.
Yeah.
Halo 5 being garbage, and I hate...
Yeah, pretty much Halo was the one for most, I think.
Halo, then Call of Duty 4.
But that also was probably because of the fact that when I was younger, I never really cared much for online multiplayer.
Like,
I
have played a Battlefield game before. I played Bad Company 2, but I never really played it much.
Bad Company 2's multiplayer was...
It was
really,
like Gold
really
Rush or Gold Mining or something. I can't really even remember.
There's a mode called Rush. What it was two objectives at a time that you had to destroy with bombs. Think like how the artillery works on the Grand Operation.
Yeah.
But there's 2 at a time, and then another 2 unlock, and then another 2 unlock. So it's like halfway between the 2 different modes.
Yep.
So, Cameron, how would you say that, based on someone who's played Battlefield a lot, are you enjoying what Battlefield 5 is currently bringing to the table?
To be completely upfront about it, I'm pretty much at the point that I'd say yeah, I'd buy it.
Mm-hmm.
The only question in my mind is whether or not any of you guys would buy it. If there was any sort of group of us that were saying yeah, we'll get it, we'll go for it. Yeah, I'm completely on board.
I think that's everyone's boat we're in. Like, none of us want to just buy it just for ourselves, but if everyone's on the fence, I feel like we're all just going to buy it.
My only concern is I have been burnt before with
I don't know about pre-ordering. I'm thinking just wait until it comes out and see if...
Oh, yeah, because...
complain about the bugs.
Yeah, there's going to be a lot of people who probably aren't going to want to buy it immediately for their own various reasons. And I also think I'm going to want to wait as well and see whether these beta bugs are just beta bugs.
Because it comes out in October?
No, I think it's been pushed back to November now. They actually said they were going to delay it and do some more fix-ups on it.
Yeah, I mean, experiencing these bugs, that's either a good thing or a bad thing, whether they're not going to be able to get the bugs out in time.
Yeah. In saying that, all of these major first-person shooter series always end up launching so heavily buggy, it's ridiculous.
Yeah.
I don't know if you guys have ever been through a Call of Duty launch or a Battlefield launch, but they're always buggy as hell. But to go back, sorry?
You mean specifically in the beta?
No, as in actually at launch. Like, the first week is normally bugged to all hell, and then there's like a week 1 patch or something that fixes a lot of it.
I feel like World of Warcraft's like my only real play on launch experience, all the bugs and all that stuff.
Yeah, so I did Modern Warfare 2 and Black Ops both at launch and experienced how buggy they were. I did Bad Company 2, Battlefield 3, and Battlefield 4 all at launch and experienced how buggy they all were. And what's happening in 5 at the moment, it's nothing, no different.
Yep.
But to go back to Luke's question of, as someone that's played through the series and has only really skipped Battlefield 1 as an entry, I don't think this one's quite meshing as well as 3 did with me.
And what do you think that is?
In saying that, I've always enjoyed the modern warfare style setting that little bit better than what the World War II setting.
Mm-hmm.
So is it the weapons or like just the backdrop or
like
German accents?
Yeah, I suppose it depends. Is it the scenarios that aren't as appealing to you?
Like gameplay or like yes.
Like compared to 3 and 4, which I think of the modern one, like comparing it to the more modern Battlefield, so basically everything post Bad Company.
Mm-hmm.
This feels a little bit slower than 3 and 4 were. In saying that, the only maps that we've seen so far are not like Rotterdam is not standard Battlefield map in my opinion. That's
interesting. I sort of like that map better.
I like the map. I do like the map, but
So you mean because I saw Battlefield 1? It's sort of like open desert and you're riding on horses.
Yeah, so 19 like Battlefield 1 I feel took a little bit like, as I said, I skipped Battlefield 1 from personal play. 1942, which I think Battlefield 1 took a lot of inspiration from, was a lot of very open maps. Rotterdam, in terms of modern battlefields, feels much more along those lines, just given how much open space there is between points. Like, let's be honest, the map's nearly a grid pattern with major open streets between them, and then the 5 points in more centralized areas.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
And that's not like going back to the Battlefield 3 beta. There was a similar thing with how they did the only map that was the only. I think it was the only map. Maybe there were 2 maps. Oh yeah, there were 2 maps, but there was only one that was open the whole beta. The only map that was the whole way through the beta of Battlefield 3 was a very close quarters map. So Rotterdam's sort of going made me think back that path, and that particular map made me feel very Call of Duty-y. Like it was all close quarters combat basically.
That makes sense. Yeah, it's so close that every time you walk around a corner, you're literally going to find someone.
And
like it's close quarters, but there's also a lot of vantage points for snipers just killing you everywhere. Can't really run across maps too good.
And this is what happened that was the thing with the Battlefield 3 beta and then into launch of the maps that the game launched with were very different to the one that they put in the beta. And to me, that's one of the biggest questions outstanding here. We've seen Rotterdam and what was the other one called?
V does it? Okay.
For some reason, I'm thinking Nazmir, but I know that's not. That's WoW Zone. I don't know the snowy one. Like
yes, no one.
We've seen those 2 maps. But my thing is, like, even those 2 maps are quite different. Conquest on that snowy one and Conquest on Rotterdam feel very different for the same game mode.
No, you're right there.
And I'm just curious at how the other, I think it's 8 maps, are going to lean. And I think that's that base is a big telling point, because this was one of the big things about the Battlefield 3 launch, and why I think 3 meshed really well personally. 3 launched with a very wide variety of maps, with a fairly significant different style, a lot of play styles. And I'm not sure if we're going to see that same hit come out of 5.
Which sort of goes back to what I was saying. I'm definitely not pre-ordering. I just get a feel, like, when it comes out, see if we still like it.
Yeah, I agree.
The one thing that would put me to ease a lot right now is if they released top-down views of what all the maps look like, and then you go, oh yeah, I see we've got our variety here. We've got the big open vehicle warfare map. We've got the like city-based Rotterdam map. We've got the really close quarters, probably like underground tunnel style map. We've got what the snowy one is of just your sort of middle corridor with the points separated out to the two sides. That sort of thing would put my mind to ease a lot, just thinking back over previous Battlefields. I don't know, where are any of you at?
Well, honestly, at this point, even if they did release top-down views of all the maps, I would be more interested to see what other game modes they had in store. Whether there are other ones, or if there's going to be different variations of the Conquest and the Grand Operations that we've already seen. Maybe you already having experience of Battlefield, maybe tell me roughly what you think the other game modes may be.
I think this actually came up in the last video. It said that I had found a list of the 8 game modes that they were releasing with.
Mm-hmm.
I'm just going to see if I can find where that list was.
Yeah, because realistically, from my
Final
perspective,
Stand? Is Final Stand like just team deathmatch or something?
Final Stand, I'm not actually sure what Final Stand is. That's new to me. To me, that sounds more deathmatchy. There is a straight team deathmatch mode from memory.
Final Stand is basically a fight to the death with extreme pressure and no respawn.
Oh, there you go. So it's basically no respawn team deathmatch.
So kind of like elimination.
Yeah.
Yeah, because from my perspective, as well as knowing what the game modes are, I'd also be interested to know whether or not there's flexibility for having smaller and larger groups in those same game modes.
Yeah,
because realistically, taking the ones that we've seen in the beta, there are a lot of people on those maps, and it's almost impossible to track every single person. If we can look at if they introduce game modes in it that allowed you to have smaller groups of people, like for example, we have a group of ours go in like 5 and like have 5v5 in our team. You know exactly how many people there are. There's one of you to each of them. That to me would feel more like a sort of Battlefield game I would be interested in playing.
Yeah, so that was... sorry if I cut anybody off there, but that's something that they made really clear with, again, when I'm talking about like 3 meshing really well with me. That was something that they made very clear with 3 very early on, of that there was a 4v4 game mode, there was an 8v8 game mode, there was a 16v16 game mode, and then there was the 13v13, 32 vs 32 game modes. Like there was different game mode sets for different player sets. And we don't seem to have the confirmation that that's how this one's going to go down. And again, this was something that was really clear early on with 3 when they started releasing details of their maps, because especially how 3 did it, the maps themselves scaled depending on how many people, which game mode it was. It was still the same map, but there was a different section of the map available based on how many people it was. As we've seen, like with the Grand Operation and Conquest both being on that snowy map, the Grand Operation part takes place in a slight different stages of that same map. It's still physically the same map, it's just being used differently. And yeah, 3 had all this staggered system of those different game modes. and there was competitive 4v4 and 8v8, and I think 16v16, but I don't remember the 16v16 competitive ever really taking off. But yeah, I wish we had that detail on if that sort of stuff was coming in this one, or if it's literally just going to be the 8, and I've got the list of 8 up now if you want to talk about them in a moment, but yeah.
Yeah, so from my perspective, at least have the information or knowing that one going into it. We've felt it. I'm in the same position of Mark, where I'm probably not looking to pre-order and probably not even buying it until I get the confirmation on exactly what sort of game modes are going to be involved. Because if they don't offer those sort of ones in the release, it's probably going to be a game changer for me, where I'm not really going to be interested.
For me, it's not really a matter of what game modes there are. It's just I want to see because we got multiple other versions of this game effectively coming out in the form of Call of Duty. And what's the other one? There's another one coming out.
World War 3?
Yeah, World War 3.
So we've got like 2 other variations to try. I'd rather see, and because I'm not going to get all 3, and I'm not going to get 2. I'm likely going to just buy 1.
Well, realistically, you're only ever going to end up playing 1.
So I think, and I doubt. I mean, if we come across that the next one's better, I don't think anyone's going to buy this one if everyone else buys another one.
Yeah.
So I'm more likely going to figure out what the best one is, what everyone's interested in, and then go with that.
Yeah.
Not too much of a complex choice, I suppose.
Yeah, the Black Ops 4 beta's coming up, so we might be able to get in and give it a crack. And well, the second beta for Black Ops 4 is coming up, and we might be able to give it a crack to just get a comparison point. I think the easy point is that Battlefield 5 is, of the 3 of them launching this year, the last of the 3 to actually launch. So it's weird, it's got the beta off earliest, but it's also... Black Ops already had 1 beta, but the main beta off earliest, and it's launching last.
It is weird.
So it also means that probably beta to final version should be the greatest difference for Battlefield 5, but hey, that's never really been... it's difficult to say that that's going to end up being the truth.
I know we've been talking COD, Battlefield, and World War 3, but Anthem sort of got off our radar a bit, whether that's worth it.
Well, Anthem to me feels like a more co-op-y game than anything else, and I gotta admit, and I might be jumping in a bit too much here, but to me the thought is, if we were going to go in Battlefield 5, I'm probably more inclined to just buy Origin Premier.
Yeah.
And that gets Anthem anyway.
Fair point.
Yeah, well, we know Graham, on the last recordings, already bought the Premier.
Yeah, well... Yeah, this is the other thing of, honestly, Battlefield 5 I would expect is going to have a shit ton of DLC with more maps and a couple more game modes brought out over the course of the next year. And if you buy it the normal way, you're just going to spend all of next year buying DLC.
I don't understand how they were talking about, but it's like they're not bringing out expansions; they're bringing out game passes now, and
yeah,
basically, is that the same as the other ones where it's been you get a season pass, and every season you unlock specific gear, but when the new season starts, you have to buy a new season pass?
Yeah.
That feels a bit dodgy to me.
So this is sort of why I'm liking the idea of Premier, especially if we were going to go down the Battlefield and maybe Anthem path, of you just pay the $120 fee admittedly, but you just go, yep, screw it to all the rest of that.
Yeah.
Yeah. I know it works out better that way, but then I sort of don't see myself playing any FIFA or Madden or any of that anyway.
Yeah, well...
No, well, you'd have a look at what other games there are.
You'll end up if we went Battlefield 5, you'd end up breaking even on Battlefield 5 on just not having to buy all the DLC shit. And then if we ended up playing Anthem, you basically just got Anthem for free. But Luke, the game mode set.
Yep.
So there's Conquest, which we've played. Conquest Assault, which is Conquest where there is a very definite attacking and defending team. So one team starts with all the points, and there is a logical order to the points to capture them, and basically the defending team, once you lose a flag, you really can't recap it. So,
yep.
in saying that, it actually plays out much the same as like 2-point capture on Overwatch, but with a much larger, longer map. Like, almost imagine it as a 6-point capture on Overwatch.
Okay, that's very interesting.
Conquest Assault is a long-standing, like, top-ranked game mode. If you look through the older Battlefield games, 1942, 2, and 2142, at least all of them, like, most played maps were Conquest Assault, because back then the actual game mode was separate for each map. And then, staying along the more conquesty side of things, there is then Frontlines. So Frontlines is, again, a Conquest map. I gather it actually reuses the version of the map from Conquest Assault, but each team starts with half the points, but there's only one that can be contested. And it's essentially a tug of war going through. So there's one neutral and two, for example, one neutral and two captured ones. Whoever captures the neutral one then forces one of the two of the opposing team to go neutral.
Yes, I see what you mean. Yep.
And yeah, you win by pushing it the whole way through.
Okay, that'd be a very interesting game mode to play.
Yeah, I have played a variation of Frontlines, but it wasn't actually in Battlefield, and it's typically... I quite enjoyed it. It keeps a reasonably focused but still very objective-based gameplay. Like, it's very tight combat because it's all about this one capture point at a time, but you're moving across this map.
Okay.
And then you have Domination. Now, I'm gonna have to rely on my knowledge from Battlefield 3 on how Domination worked back then. So Domination used to be the small version of Conquest. It was typically only 3 points, and it was typically all clustered close by, and in a no vehicles map. So the example was that your Domination maps in Battlefield 3 were all indoor only maps.
Okay.
So it was meant to be your much more close quarters, and I believe in Battlefield 3 it was a 16 vs 16 game mode, not a 32 vs 32. But again, not sure how that's going to play out with this one.
Okay, fair enough. Well, Domination's always been an interesting one to play.
Yeah, it actually, if you played the Call of Duty Domination game modes, it's basically the same concept.
Okay.
Just with slight adjustments because it's Battlefield. Then you've got Team Deathmatch, which surely we don't need to explain what Team Deathmatch is.
No, simple enough.
There's Final Stand, which we covered before, basically no respawn Team Deathmatch.
Yep.
And then the other two are Airborne and Breakthrough, which are the larger, more extended versions of more... You know how the Grand Operation had an Airborne phase and then a Breakthrough phase?
Yes.
It's actually those two concepts as standalone game modes.
Okay, that's not too bad.
And yeah, that's the list of 8, and then you on top of that have the Grand Operation, which will string together smaller versions, well, possibly smaller or possibly full size, don't know, details not really released, of each of these game modes. Like how we saw the one so far was Airborne into Breakthrough, and then there will also be the Battle Royale mode, which is, I gather, a 16-way 4v4. So 16 teams of 4 go into the Battle Royale.
Wow. I'm interested to see what kind of map they put you on. And whether or not, if you're putting that many people on a map, whether or not they actually have to have upscaled versions of their existing maps to compensate for it, or if they actually have special ones on the side.
I believe they said in an interview somewhere that it is a special map, but again, not 100% sure. I haven't been following the media on this that closely.
Okay, well that's easy enough then. Well, those game modes don't sound too bad. a lot of familiar ones in there, so that's it sounds appealing. But yeah, it all remains to see how diverse they are with allowing you to go in with multiple different size groups to complete those same missions. If they allow that, then yeah, that would possibly sway my opinion.
So, yeah, this is the one thing, like, coming from jumping forward from the 3 and 4 era, the bigger mission to me is Rush. There's not Rush there, which was two capture points simultaneous. It's much the same idea as Breakthrough, but the idea was once you captured it, it couldn't be recaptured.
Mm-hmm. Okay.
So, because the big point with Rush was in every Battlefield game that I remember where Rush appeared, Rush had different size settings. So Rush was always the one that went all the way down to 4v4. Whereas Conquest, I believe, only ever got down to 8v8. So, outside of possibly Domination and maybe Team Deathmatch or Final Stand, I don't see what game modes there are going to end up being smaller than an 8v8 at the minimum.
Oh, that makes sense. I can understand that for a lot of those other ones.
Yeah.
Interesting. Okay, well, at least it sounds like it has quite a bit to offer anyway. Would you say that compares well with what they've usually done in previous Battlefield games, or do you think they actually are missing a few of the key ones that they used to have?
As I said, Rush is the only one that's really on. I look at and go, that's an omission. The biggest question to me, and this is what I was saying, the biggest question is what the map variety is going to bring into it. Like, if you've got, I believe they've said 10 maps, but again, I might be misquoting there. If it again ends up being 10 reasonably samey maps, then the different game modes aren't going to save that.
No, I agree with you there. They have to have some kind of uniqueness to each of the maps to make them replayable, and therefore then make the different game modes more appealing to players as well.
Yeah, so in terms of how previous Battlefields have launched, this game mode lineup is actually looking reasonably healthy, except it's missing Rush, which in my opinion is a bit of an omission, but I'm not the entire Battlefield community. Yeah, it's more 10 maps again is basically standard for release on a Battlefield game, or at least post Bad Company. It's just what variety we end up with in those 10 maps.
Interesting.
I suppose in essence we've all been kind of spoiled a bit, or rather I feel like I've been a bit spoiled with Blizzard, where you look at a game like Overwatch, you pay for the game once and you get given all this, and as of now we're reaching this is the end of the second year, where we're still getting new content for free, extra maps, extra characters, but you're not going to get that with these other games.
Well, you'll probably get a better flow of content for Battlefield than what you have been for Overwatch. It's just a case of if you buy the game by itself, it's not going to be free.
Yeah, that's sort of what I was going to say. Overwatch is good that you don't have to pay extra, but really, you only really got 3 or 4 game modes if you think about it, and then there's a few special events where Battlefield and all, they sort of chuck in all these events and all these maps and, well, not events, modes.
Fair point, but I suppose that might have been the fact that when Overwatch, for the first year of Overwatch, it was great, but obviously since then it's just become repetitive. It's probably its only issue.
So, just to put it in perspective, Overwatch, I believe, launched with 11 maps, and each of those maps only supports one game mode, and ultimately there is only 4 game modes, depending on how many variations of push the payload and capture the points you want to accept of different game modes.
Yeah, see, we're happy to push payloads, and, it's repetitive, but it's enjoyable, but really, there's not much to Overwatch when you...
Yeah.
In saying that, I still overly prefer the animated sort of look compared to just a war sort of realistic.
Yeah. Yeah.
Which is why I'm more in favor of stuff like Anthem and Halo and Destiny. But
I don't know. To me, I admit, part of me is going more. This is a question of Origin Premiere versus by Call of Duty Black Ops mainly.
Yep.
Because to me, I'm not going to buy Battlefield 5 by itself. To me, you buy Premiere and just don't worry about the DLC, because it's going to end up being the same price if you were going to play the DLC. And in that case, you get Anthem and stuff into it. I don't know if anybody else's headspace is in that area, but to me, that's the bigger question of Premiere versus Black Ops 4. And if it goes Black Ops 4, then Anthem becomes a separate question. Whereas if you were going Premiere, that's just Battlefield 5 and Anthem rolled in. But I wouldn't buy Premiere just for Anthem.
Well, I suppose with the open beta for Battlefield 5 now coming to an end, next thing we have lined up will be our open beta for Call of Duty 4, assuming nothing else comes up in between then, that I'm aware of anyway. So I suppose, what's everyone's final thoughts leaving Battlefield 5? Did you enjoy your experience?
I enjoyed it more coming off to the end than I did at the start, sort of, because just being lost, not knowing
Very
the proper mechanics and the moves and how to work as a team. But at the end of it, I was enjoying it and really getting into it. I didn't like where sometimes it glitched and I got put in a solo team and like just had to go by myself and keep respawning on the captured points and stuff like that.
Yeah, but luckily for us, most of that should be fixed up once the full game comes out, and hopefully they'll soon introduce a way for you to be able to invite people properly to your group and not have only one option for getting people in. But that's another topic altogether.
Yeah, it just solidifies the point that we won't. I don't expect anyone who buys this won't be playing it solo.
Yeah,
maybe you would play it solo, but only if as the exception to. Like, you might play it solo one afternoon, but most of the time you end up playing it as a group anyway.
Exactly.
I'd be happy, like, occasionally solo with randoms, but, like, I still would prefer to play with people I know and talk to.
Like, let's be honest.
I mean, it's a very talkative game.
Who here plays solo Overwatch?
I mean, like, competitively?
I mean, if I want my arcade boxes, yeah.
Well, yeah. But mainly, would any of us really play solo Overwatch, other than that, like, game here and there? Or arcades?
Exactly. A simple thing is you really wouldn't.
Yeah.
It's probably easier to look at. For something as complex as Battlefield, it's probably better to look at it from the competitive environment. Most of us don't play Overwatch competitive by ourselves, and that in itself is pretty much what it's like to play Battlefield.
Yeah.
But yeah, no, I agree with you, Mark. I rather enjoy the experience, having never played Pop Battlefield myself before. It was difficult at the start, but I have to admit I was really enjoying it at the end. All we have to do is see how the rest of these games that we're looking at throughout the rest of the year turn out, and ultimately decide whether or not Battlefield 5 is the one we want to choose.
I haven't looked into Anthem, but, like, so Battlefield if you don't get in on the ground floor, it sort of just keeps building up and, like, you just ruin the experience. But, like, is Anthem something we can look at later in the future and, like, still get the full experience of not buying it at the start?
To me, Anthem looks more like a co-op game than Battlefield's, like, strictly... well, not strictly, but mainly online multiplayer, so... personally, I see it more like playing Overwatch versus Borderlands.
Yeah, I'd agree with you there. Just based off some of the gameplay stuff I've seen for it already, not considering anything about the story. It looks like most of the replay very simply comes in redoing missions at slightly harder difficulties, but ultimately it's just a straight multiplayer game. You go in for a group, you complete an objective, you get out. Nothing doesn't really seem to be anything more complicated than that. I don't know what the PvP and that sort of thing would be like, if there even is any such thing. But I don't imagine it'd be anything near what Battlefield requires out of you.
Okay.
Nick, what about your thoughts of where you were versus now? Sort of closing thoughts on beta.
I think it was good. It was a interesting game. I have to admit, I still preferred it. Like, I reckoned it was a good game for like just team comp in general. Like, I think the squad of 4 was fun. It would be nice if there was a bigger squad, but maybe they'll have variation to that in the main one. But like in general, it was nice to sort of see that you could sort of set up your own little mini squad. You didn't have to stick with the group. A squad of 4 could easily go around and mow down everyone, or as most of us generally did, just all died together. Or a squad that fights together, dies together, and then the team leader gets annoyed and drops a nuke.
A kill cam would be handy, then also probably bad as well.
I feel like the kill cam is kind of there, but it sort of just shows an outline of where the target is. I was noticing that towards the end, but it's like it doesn't show you where they are, like a third-person view at the back of their head. It just says there's a highlighted symbol go, he was over in that building. Like, okay. So it doesn't give away, because otherwise you effectively just go and spawn camp them, but I mean, the game was progressing so fast, once someone killed you, you watch that guy die while you were dying.
Yeah.
But no, I think... I think in terms of replayability, I think the game's good. I have to admit, I'm probably going to get bored if it's the same gun, so I'm going to hope there's tons of different variations to things.
Oh, actually, on that, Graham and I found out that there's not only different guns, but within it, the different classes, there's different modifications to the classes that are going to be part of the final game. It was just locked away for the beta.
Okay, well in that case, that'll add some more, I suppose, fun to it, because I was sort of getting bored of the fact that you couldn't really switch guns, because there was basically nothing to switch to unless you'd played the game for like hours on end to unlock a level.
So, like, the example we found was, for the assault class, it was the grenadier spec, but then there was, if you went in to modify that, there was like this list of blank panels. Oh
yeah, I do remember seeing that first time I loaded up the game.
And it's like, well, to me this means that there's more coming, it's just not in the beta. And similarly, if that's the final weapons list, that's appallingly short for a Battlefield game.
Yeah, which I did sort of hypothesize that it probably was just because the beta and they locked it away.
Yeah.
So, I mean, I'll make a different suggestion or my different analysis on that when it comes out in full.
And from memory, they did the same thing in the Battlefield 3 beta, and I can't remember what happened with the Battlefield 4 one, but it's probably the same as well, where there was actually a really small portion of the class class variety unlocked as part of the beta.
Okay.
Essentially, it was the part that they actually thought they had balanced right at the time.
Yeah.
Just thinking about when you're just talking then about that we'll be given the option to customize our weapon and gear in the full release. Not having played Battlefield, and I don't think I figured out playing from the beta, can you actually pick up the arms of the enemies you defeated and use them? Obviously, you can. You have
can pick up the main
main
weapon. Don't know about the rest.
Okay.
So
was that something that we could do in this beta?
In the past,
I've done it a few times.
Oh, I think I did it once.
Okay.
In the past,
that's how you get the good guns, like, because we got the basic ones, and you're like, oh, this guy's got an awesome gun.
That's what I was thinking, yeah, because if it gives you the option to customize, I mean, one of the things I used to enjoy about back when I played COD for the first time was seeing someone with a better gun, luckily beating them in a fight, and then using their gun to go and mow down a bunch of other people, then them thinking that you actually had the better gun.
So in the past games, the way it's actually worked is you pick up their entire kit.
Mm-hmm.
So you basically swap out your entire what you are to what they are. So like if you're an assault and you kill a medic and take their gun, it actually made you a medic. Is how it used to work. I don't know if that's the way that this one was working. I didn't pay that much attention to like the one time that I picked up somebody else's stuff.
Yeah, it kind of feels like an Agent 47 thing going on there. Bit of Hitman. just go put someone on someone's gear and all of a sudden you take on their persona.
But like, it was especially important back in the old ones because only medics could revive. So a big thing was that if your medic died, somebody else could go pick up the medic's weapon become the medic themselves and then res the medic. You basically swapped roles with the medic, but you still got your teammate, your squad mate up.
Okay, so what you're saying is, though, when you switched, you couldn't go and just reclaim your old gear if you wanted to?
Well, in that particular case, when the guy respawned, he respawned with your gear set because that's the one you swapped with his.
Oh. Well, that's interesting.
Is that just for your teammates or the enemy? Like,
No, that would apply to enemies as well.
That could be very
but
tricky.
again, that's just how the previous ones worked. I didn't pay that much attention to how it was going down in this one.
it's sort of like you like it or you love it sort of situation.
Very interesting.
Yeah.
Yeah. So.
Well, I definitely wasn't aware of that.
Did I say you like it or love it? I meant
Yes.
like it or hate it.
That's okay.
Yeah. All right. Well, I think we might wrap up the recording there because I just realised this is now 40 minutes in, and we said this was going to be a short one.
Oh, it is a short one.
Yeah, short 40-minute conversation. All right. I have no idea if I'll end up uploading this or if we're just keeping this one for history's sake. But hey, I uploaded the last one, so we don't have Raymond play the harmonicas. But
I feel like that's a benefit.
by anybody that's listening to this in the future.
See you
Be
next
us.
time.
Yeah.